Welcome to Robinson College Chapel to this, our Remembrance Day service. Today we're very privileged to welcome Mr. Eric Cook, a conscientious objector from the Second World War, and Mr. Norman Summers, a former staff member here at Robinson and a veteran of the Second World War. We begin our reflections with a reading from Scripture that recounts how the great warrior King David was forbidden to build a temple in Jerusalem because he had too much blood on his hands. The task, instead, would fall to his son Solomon.
David called for his son Solomon and charged him to build a temple for the Lord, the God of Israel. David said to Solomon, "My son, I had it in my heart to build a house for the name of the Lord my God. But this word of the Lord came to me. You have shed much blood and have fought many wars. You are not to build a house for my name, because you have shed much blood in my sight. But you will have a son who will be a man of peace and rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies on every side. His name will be Solomon, and I grant Israel peace and quiet during his reign. He is the one who will build a house for my name."
Norman Summers, a very warm welcome back to Robinson College and back to chapel. I know you're very familiar with the place.
Yes.
Because you worked here for a good few years.
I worked here for 3 years, yes.
And can I ask when that was?
When they were finishing the chapel, the organist were here, and all day long they were playing one tune, Delilah.
Really?
And everybody went in the college, you could hear the organ playing Delilah.
The Tom Jones song?
Yes.
I'll have a word with our organ scholars and see if they can still do that. We are celebrating Remembrance Day,
Yes.
and you've got a lot of experiences and memories of the Second World War. And I wondered if we might begin by asking you what happened the day you left home.
We were put in a train, locked in the train at the station, and when we woke up in the morning, we were in Liverpool docks, and that's all, you know. We were put on the ship, and then we landed in North Africa.
You remember the name of the ship?
In Maloja, yeah.
And how long did it take to get to North Africa?
I think it was about 12 days, something like that.
Okay. And one of your neighbours today
Yes.
was on that same ship
Yes.
and got off the ship at the same place.
He was in the tank corps. I was in the Royal Engineers.
Oh, you're a sapper.
Sapper, yes.
And can you tell me then, where did you land in North Africa?
A place called Bone.
Okay.
It's now called Annabelle.
Okay. And you didn't stay there, you then went into Europe.
we went through then and we went on the ship, landed in Taranto in Italy. I was in the 8th Army in Italy then.
And from Italy, presumably then, with the 8th Army, you travelled north.
On the Adriatic side.
Yes.
And
So
we went to, I was a bulldozer operator. And we went up to Casino, not into the city, into the town, just a block from the Cape City away. But it was being bombed and that was frightening.
And you travelled up the east coast of Italy.
Nearly all the time, yeah.
And then, did you travel north after that?
Yes, the last place I went come in was called Faenza, near Rimini.
Yeah.
Then I was sent to Austria, to Vienna then, and that's where I ended up.
And in Vienna, your headquarters.
In Vienna was Schönbrunn Palace, yeah.
So you were stationed in the palace.
Well, in the area, yeah.
Yeah. And your role there, you were responsible for prisoners of war.
In the mornings you had operators, they said, well, 4 carpenters and 4 bricklayers were there, and they'd step forward, like, you know, for something to, because they knew they were going to get food. But they were looked after.
Can you give us the story about your copy of Mein Kampf?
We were doing construction work in the city, and we went in this place. It was St. Stephen's Stone, the church.
Okay.
So I found it.
And there it was. And you
And I took it.
you took it?
I shouldn't have done it.
There are not many people who can say they stole a copy of Mein Kampf from a church. And you brought it home.
And I brought it home. And I kept it. And when I worked here, I found Dr. Stewart was a German-speaking lady.
Dr. Stewart, our German specialist.
And I gave it to her.
Okay.
A long time ago.
That's true. And when the war ended, can you say something about your return to England?
Well, I came home. I see I saw my daughter. She was nearly 4.5 when I first saw her.
And your wife was living in Cambridge,
Yes.
where you met her.
Yes. She was lovely.
When did you meet?
When did I meet her?
Yeah.
Oh, 1942.
And that was in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And you've been here ever since.
Yes.
And you worked at Robinson for a few years from the...
I came by here one day in a van, and I see this place being built. And I went in where the Porter's Lodge is now, and Fred was on.
Fred Boyne.
Yes. He was an ex-military man.
Yeah.
And I explained to him I was looking for a job. He said, what do you do? And I told him. And I came here, and I worked here.
What are some of the jobs that you did in the college?
General maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I ask you then, just go back to the war for a moment, do you have any memories that stand out?
Well, I was lucky to come home.
Right.
A few never come home. But there used to be a chap, had the post office at Newmarket Road, and I was talking to him one day, and he said, were you in the forces in North Africa? Well, my mate was killed in North Africa in January the 21st, 1943. He was killed. And this chap was in the RAF. And it's a funny thing, but he was stationed at the airfield what we were building. And he saw my mate killed.
But you actually witnessed the crash?
He saw a crash. Well, he said the aircraft come in. He was a jumper driver. And came in, killed him.
Gosh.
And I would like to go back to Bone to see my mate's grave. But I can't do it.
No. What was his name?
Sapper Kendall.
Sapper Kendall.
Kendall, yes. I think it's Sapper F. Kendall, I think. We got called up together, like, didn't we? We were all mates.
And what was the biggest danger? Was it the bombing? Or
Everything.
really?
We didn't know whether today or to gone today, gone tomorrow. We didn't know. One of those things.
Yeah.
But war's terrible things. Okay, Norman.
Yeah. Norman Summers, thank you very much indeed.
Quite all right.
Thank you. Friends, let us remember in silence all who have died in war.
they shall grow old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Eric Cook, a very warm welcome to this version of Robinson College Chapel. We've known one another for over 20 years, and one of the first things I'd learned about you was that you were a conscientious objector in the Second World War. But I wonder if you could say something about your background before the war.
Well, I was only, 12 when the war started. So my previous record would have been in the local school. I only went to one school, Whitefriars in Harrow, which in fact was in the very street that I lived. And the playing field for the school was at the bottom of my garden. So if I was late for school, I just used to go down the garden, crawl under the fence for the school fence, and then I wasn't reported late.
I didn't know you went to Harrow.
I was educated at the same place as Winston Churchill.
There you go.
He was at the school at the top of the hill. I was at the local primary down below.
And so you're 12 when the war started.
Yes.
The war clearly didn't leave your family untouched. Your brother had joined the RAF.
That's right.
Yes. Are you happy to say more about that?
Yes, he joined the RAF. And in fact, he was among the very first batch of Air Force people to train in America. He was sent out to America technically as a civilian. Remember, he had to go to the 50 shilling tailor, 50 bob tailors, as it was called, to be given measured for a civilian suit, for him to go out as a civilian to America, where he learnt to fly in Miami.
And he was on. He came back to Britain and he was flying Lancasters.
That's right.
From near Huntingdon, just up the road here.
Yes. I can't remember the actual base that he was at. Mark will possibly remember.
Whitton, I think Mark mentioned.
What did he say? Yes.
Pathfinder Squadron at Whitton.
That's right, it was Pathfinders. Yeah.
And they were the sort of cutting edge of the bomber crews that went out.
Yes, yes. Yes, I believe they sort of went in first and identified the target and sort of drop flares and things for the others to follow in.
So that was highly dangerous work.
Yeah. Yes, it was very risky. I can't remember exactly how many flights he did. I think it was about 4 or 5 before he was shot down.
Mm.
In fact, it was all in the space of 1 week. And that was the average length of life for a bomber crew at that time. 5 raids, 5 nights running. And that was the average. And he was just on the average when he was shot down. Which,
How old was he?
20.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a few years older than you when this happened.
I had 2 brothers. He was the oldest.
Ah, right. I didn't know that. I didn't know you had another brother.
Yes, another brother, Frank, who joined the Navy.
Oh.
He was in the Navy. He was known at school, and he was known generally quite often as Jammy Cook.
Really?
Because he was stationed in Italy, working on motor torpedo boats. Most of them were on motor torpedo boats, but 1 or 2 were selected for air sea rescue launches.
Mm.
Of course, he got the air sea rescue launch.
Right.
So he was always known as Jammy Cook.
Okay.
And I think he spent most of his time going up and down Italy refereeing football matches.
Jammy Cook.
Jammy Cook.
And can I ask you then, when the time came for you to sign up, what led you to decide not to join the military and to be a conscientious objector?
That's a difficult one to answer at this now, exactly what I was thinking at the time. I mean, I was always an anti-war. Always felt it was wrong and the wrong way to settle disputes, if you like. It was just a personal conviction that it wasn't right, and I couldn't be responsible for the death of another human.
And at the time, they were fairly rigorous in making sure that conscientious objectors really were conscientious in their objection. Can you remember much about the process that you underwent?
Well, first of all, when you were due for register for military service, you registered as an objector, and then you get called before court, presided over by a judge and a panel of experts, or what do you like to call them, and then you're cross-examined as to your reasons and so forth. That wasn't too bad. I mean, I remember when my local minister came with me as a witness, character witness, we got there in the morning and sat in to the case before. And we were, in fact, due the first case after lunch. I remember there was one man who was very difficult on the panel. He was the trade union representative, but he was very aggressive in his questioning and so forth, you know. And I remember the minister saying to me when it came to lunchtime, well, let's hope he has a good lunch. He's in a bit of mood when we get back for your case. I was the first one after lunch, and lo and behold, when we got before the panel, he was missing. He was late back. He didn't come back until after my case had been cleared.
Jammy Cook.
Yeah, Jammy. Yeah. Not me.
And so you could have been sent anywhere from that. People were sent to all kinds of different places, weren't they? Can you? Where did you end up?
Well, the majority of people. people at that time were being sent down the mines as coal miners. But I was very thin, a bit pasty looking. And I remember them sort of saying, no, not the physical build for the coal mines, for which I gave a sigh of relief. And then they made the order strange enough. Well, it was towards the end of the war, so I suppose it was the war was coming to an end, and so they were thinking in terms of rebuilding. So I was given the order hospital work or work in connection with the building industry, thinking in terms of rebuilding after the war. In fact, well, I did work for a while for a small building firm, but then when I had the chance to go and work in the hospital, I did that, you know, just as a porter, come cleaner, come odd job man, you name it, we did it.
Right. And so presumably then, in this hospital, you are looking after patients who had been wounded during active service. How was your relationship with those people, with some of the patients?
Most of the time, in fact, all of the time, very good. I think it partly depended on how you were as an individual. I don't want to sort of blow my own trumpet or anything, but if you did little things for them, for example, if you, like running around the ward taking papers from one to another and that sort of thing, you know, which technically you weren't supposed to do. You were there not as, you weren't a medical orderly, you were basically a cleaner. You spent your day polishing floors, you know, just so as most of them were, it was an orthopedic hospital, so most of them were arms and legs injuries sort of thing, you know. It used to annoy me because you had to polish the floor till you could see your face in it. And then some poor fella gets out of bed for the first time in years and immediately goes flat on his face, you know. Some of that went a bit against the grain, but it gave you the opportunity to do little things for them, like passing messages from one to the other. Passing messages, there were listener huts, 7 I think, 7, 1 was officers, 6 were, or 5 were men, 1 was women. And you were ever asked to pass messages, you know, from the women up to the women's hut and back again.
So they essentially appreciated you being there in that sense. I mean, you didn't get a hard time.
I didn't get a hard time from the patients at all, no. They were quite appreciative of any little thing you could do, you know. And indeed, occasionally, I can remember one occasion, a new patient came in, lad about my own age, and he was a bit aggressive towards me. I mean, he didn't have to be a brain surgeon to learn why I was there and he was the one in Army Blues. But the other members of the hut sort of jumped on him, shut him up straight away. But I think that's partly because, you know, I had the opportunity to do little things for them. They couldn't get out and pass messages. They couldn't get the odd thing they wanted from a shop. If the trolley that came round hadn't got it, they would ask me, you know, could you get me a, whatever it was, fountain pen or pencil or whatever it was, on your way home. And I would get it and bring it in the next day. And I think little things like that, they appreciated, you know, and helped in the relationship.
So there was a bit of self-interest in them making sure that they looked after you.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right.
But it was an interesting experience. I never got promoted to the officers' room. Or they had
You went to
their
the wrong Harrow.
Yes. I was at the bottom of the hill, not the top.
Right. The I suppose in the years following the war, there are lots of associations and groups of veterans that would meet up and so on. And of course, you have Remembrance Day each year. I mean, how did you experience that side, that sort of remembering the war in later years?
Well, I didn't take part in ceremonies or anything, but I was very conscious of my brother and thought about him quite a lot, of Albert. For many years, in fact, it's still at home now. I used to have a big poppy, and every year I used to plant it in the I had 2 flower pots in the front garden.
Oh, yeah.
And I always planted the cross for the poppy one, you know, in there in memory of Albert every year. It was my own little tribute, you know.
That's your act of remembrance. So can we, can I move you on a little? This term, we are exploring the theme of the temple in Jerusalem and its destruction. It's a setting that you and your wife Rose were very familiar with. You used to travel to the Garden Tomb every year for a long time, didn't you?
Quite a few years, yes.
Could you remember that King David wanted to build his great temple in Jerusalem and God wouldn't let him because there was blood on his hands.
Yeah.
Could you say something about why God didn't want someone that had bloody hands to build the temple? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Only that the temple was intended to be, or designed to be a place of peace and security. The Temple Mount today, in modern days, is a bit divided. There's the old temple area there, but there's also a big mosque, and everything is divided between Islam and the Jewish faith, you know. It can be a sparking point for trouble, really, even now, because it's the main part, as far as the Jewish people are concerned, is the wall of believed to be part of the original temple wall, and they come there and pray, but that can cause problems. I mean, that in fact, towards the top of the wall on the side was a footpath, and I can remember seeing Muslim boys deliberately throwing stones down on the worshippers below.
Really?
But I would be sitting back looking, you know, could see this happening. So I made sure that they saw me and saw that I was looking, when they would just put the stones down and disappear.
That's a great place to finish. Eric Cook, thank you very much.
Pleasure. It's been lovely to speak to you again, Simon.
Thank you.
Vitolis peccata